Hey, everybody, welcome back. This is our last episode for the month of February. It just seems like time has just flown by. What I need you to do right now is hit that notification bell and subscribe, tag a friend, and share. We're going to have a very, very good conversation tonight with my brother, Jason B. Allen, also known as the professor. He is here. Hey, Jason, welcome back.
I am super excited to be back. Good evening to you and everyone who is viewing live.
Awesome. First of all, just to catch up, how you doing? How you feeling? What's been going on?
So I'm filled with love, as you see on my sweatshirt. Is the last day of Black History Month. It's also February 29th, which is super dope day, leap day. We have a mutual friend, great brother JT, who is celebrating his birthday on today. So
Yes, you beat me
um,
to it. I was gonna shout him out and tell JT happy birthday. So
Yes,
hopefully he
yes,
will
but
see this.
that's what makes the day so exciting. Like knowing someone who has a birthday on today. It's crossover day here in Georgia, so a lot of work being done under the Gold Dome to make sure that the people are getting the resources they need. And yeah, today overall is just phenomenal.
Awesome, awesome. So before we get everything kicked off, everyone, just as a reminder, what I need you to do right now is hit that notification bell and subscribe. You can follow us on Facebook and YouTube at Camille Essick Official and the Speaker Podcast. Also on Instagram at Camille.Essick. And be sure to hit that notification bell and subscribe. So since the last conversation, Jason, what's been going on in your world?
So, since the last conversation, guys, listen, I have to start with the National Parents Union. So, major shout out to NPU. If you live in Atlanta or in Georgia, NPU also stands for Neighborhood Planning Units. So, major shout out to our neighborhood planning units, but I'm talking about NPU, the National Parents Union. We had our Georgia Parent Week of Action the very first week of this month, kicking off Black History Month. We focused in on engaging men and fathers in educational equity. We touched 494 uh, brothers across the state. Major shout out to all of our partners and parents who were intricate in making sure that parent voices are amplified. So that's what I've been focusing on, helping to amplify parent voices, engaging uh, all of our constituents that are touching the lives of our children in this work. So join us at nationalparentsunion.org, and it's free to join us, and we're impactful. So that's a
Very
little bit about
awesome.
what I've been doing.
That's awesome. It seems like you wear so many hats, but one of the things I want to ask you, because I know your schedule is always booked and busy. What do you do, or let's talk about the importance of a lot of men not having downtime or the need to process the stress and frustration, just because there are so many things. I know in a previous conversation we talked about performance exhaustion. So can you kind
Yes.
of address like men, particularly Black men, not having downtime and also having the need to process stress and frustration.
So that's phenomenal. As I just mentioned with NPU, focusing in on male and fatherhood engagement, uh, it's important that we all take a breath and we take a break. There's a
Yeah.
lot of stress. Adulting is not easy. So let me just shout out adults that are, trying to do their best and figuring out the best ways to be the best humans, the best parents, the best people every day. We focused in a lot on mental health in Black men. Major shout out to the Brothers Brunch Foundation, Kenneth Reddick, their major partner of NPU here in Georgia, and uh, them along with I Change Collaborative, Dr. Danny and Martha uh, are leading conversations with men around mental health and the importance of really having vulnerable, safe spaces for brothers to share their experiences. And it is definitely needed. So, two things that I will offer to people just as quick solutions, because everybody doesn't have the autonomy to be in these conversations online if they're
Mhm.
working. Life is lifing, and these things are definitely happening. um,
Yes.
Two things I would definitely say to people that are free and you can do this with a short or long amount of time. Find some space in your apartment complex, your neighborhood, your home, your community to put your feet, put your hands in the ground and just meditate and just be at one with God and nature. That is important because sometimes we have so much violence and so much chaos and so
Mhm.
much stress that is around us. We just need those moments of peace. And now the teacher and nerd in me is gonna say this. Number two, you got to read a book. Reading a book, and it's good if you're doing it, you know, on your tablets, on your phones, however you're reading, that's great. But I like to pick up an old fashioned book. James McBride is one of my favorite authors. Um, and I'm currently reading The Heaven and Earth Grocery Store. So talk about,
Wow.
taking a mental break. This is also good self care. And I'll
Mhm.
give some other tips later. But yeah, those are two free things that any brother can do or anyone can do for that matter.
I love it. I just think even going deeper into that, because I also think about therapy, brothers having a safe space to kind of unpack, talk, and share without weaponizing feelings or vulnerabilities, not being attacked emotionally or questioned as far as who they are as a man, and just even creating safe spaces for brothers to sit down and talk. Like, hey, check in. Hey, man, how you doing? What's going on? Oh, I'm good. And I'm like, no, seriously, like, how are you doing for real?
Yes. No, that's good. I mean, I'm glad that we're, highlighting this. Uh, I was having a conversation earlier just about black children and black
Mm,
children. Spiritually, there's disconnections. There's a lot of brokenness, a lot of healing that needs to take place,
yeah.
and we don't have everybody centered in these conversations. And so, as we're focusing in on, men and how they're doing. Um, I love Brother Kenneth Reddick. I mentioned him and the Brothers Brunch Foundation. He periodically checks in on people and say, "Hey, um, are you well?" Instead of asking how
Mhm.
you're doing, because if people can get by saying, "Oh, how are you doing? I'm good." We know how it is. I'm good. Hey, I'm good, man. I'm
I'm
cool
blessed
right
and highly
now.
favored.
Right, I'm blessed and highly favored. I'm great. We put on that mask, and so we're good. But when you
Yeah,
ask somebody, are you doing well? I got to take a moment to think about that. Well,
yeah.
yeah, kind
I like
of.
that.
Maybe not mentally right now. I'm not in the best mental state of mind. I have a lot on my mind. I'm,
Mhm.
kind of overspent. I'm stretched out to my limit. Okay, well that's good. So what can you do to, maybe lessen that? And that's a
Yeah,
great way to break open um, the conversation because everybody doesn't have access to a therapist or maybe connected to a therapist that's working for them. So communication is key. And a lot of times, black men, unfortunately, by our society, are taught to bottle these things in and hold it in because that's the quote unquote masculine thing to do. It may be the masculine thing to do, but it will definitely have you mentally unstable.
yeah. So as far as unpacking it, I really wanna dig deeper into this, Jason, and thank you for sitting down to share your perspective with me on this. I really appreciate you for that. What are other things brothers can do to even create the opportunity to have the conversation? Like, I listen to a lot of conversations around men, and it's like, hey, they go to the gym and work out, or they go play basketball, or go to an event. Then it's like, all right, man, it was good. I'll see you the next time. But it's like, but during that time, you're hooping or in the gym or at the game or wherever, or even grabbing something to eat in between that. Where is that opportunity to have that conversation and break the ice?
Yeah, that's good. I think that it happens differently for everyone.
Mhm,
All of us have a different walk. So I'm thinking about when I had to work, two or three jobs to really pay for school and make it through school. That was a different time for me. Like I was connected to what was happening in the community differently because I was
mhm,
working with people who were struggling and in the struggle of, having to work two or three jobs because my main job is, not bringing in enough. So that's a
yeah,
different mindset to be in when I'm going from one hustle to the next and I'm trying to make ends meet and, you know, let's also center this conversation around black men and mental health and fathers.
Yes.
We're trying to have a conversation and not understanding the impact of this on the black family. We're trying to
Mm,
heal black women and we're trying to heal black children in schools, in and out of schools, and also in our communities. But I want to highlight another one of our NPU partners, Fathers Inc. You know, Kenneth Braswell is showing us how, listen, we know that black men are impactful. We know
yes.
that they're engaged. So how do we make sure that they're centered in these conversations? This brother in his one of his programs, they had over 200 plus fathers graduating through an academy, who are
Wow.
working to be committed to holding their families together and providing for their children. And they're up against a
Mhm.
system that is blocking them on every end. So now you talk about mental health. We are trying to prepare these brothers for having to face a system that is going to try to break them, because it's going to be fee after fee after fee to try to get a piece of paper in order to see your child, in order to have paternal rights to your child, in order to be able to be a part of your child's academic
Mhm.
career and their engagement in the community. So there's a lot of um, conversation that must be had about how we're supporting these black men, whether they are young fathers, middle-aged fathers, father figures, black men in our society. But we also have to have a deeper conversation around how we're engaging black women in these conversations and allowing space and healing for things to also improve our relationships spiritually, intimately, emotionally, socially with black women as well, who we know are the most unprotected uh, being on this planet.
I like that you brought that up. And we've discussed this before as far as the blue pill, red pill conversation that's going on, and also Black men and mental health advocacy, which I have a heart for. And so one of the reasons why I love having you here to have these conversations, to continue to like dissect this conversation and try to find solutions, because I feel like there's so much chatter out there, but what
Yes,
platforms and what spaces are available to say, okay, but what are we doing to correct these problems, or even to begin the conversation that could spark the idea to, for a solution. And so you bringing that up, what are your thoughts on, you mentioned paternal rights, but even creating spaces where brothers can access the information to know. I don't think a lot of men even know their rights as a father, because in their mind
yeah.
they feel like, oh, well, the court is going to automatically go on the woman's side, or it's maternal bias that we see in the courtroom in the judicial system. But even going about putting out the information for our brothers to have information for those good fathers that want to be present. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
So I would say there are again a lot of barriers. Hearing
Mhm.
from black men, black male teachers, black male fathers, black male tutors, black male after school program directors, black male educational advocates. When we're in different spaces, um, black men are not centered in the conversation. A lot of black men will say when they go to the initial doctor's appointments, the conversations are always centered around the mom and how can we support
Yeah.
you, but there's no real interaction. It's almost like you're a ghost. They're not considered. We know this happens in schools as well. Dad may be present, but he's not considered until there may be an issue with discipline. And now we want you to be
Mhm.
engaged with the discipline of your child, but the impact of how your child is understanding vocabulary, or
Yeah.
understanding critical thinking and being able to read on grade level, and connecting to math and science, etc., so forth. We're not really focusing in on engaging you there. So I think that it one on my podcast, Speak Black Man, and check us out on educationalentities.com. A lot of our conversations throughout the seasons have been around erasing the stigmas around Black men, especially the negative stereotypes. And so these
Mhm.
negative stereotypes are already embedded in the system. So
Yeah.
even when black men show up in their authentic ways, their authentic selves, those stereotypes are
Right.
still present. So white women come with the notion of these are predators. They don't have my best interest in mind. They are, sexually unstable, and they are going to want to try to bring harm to me. These are a lot of the stereotypes that white women and other people have. Again, we're automatically going to steal, and we're strung out on drugs, and we're illiterate, and we're not trying to do anything to better our communities, and we're not responsible. We don't take care of our children. We don't take care of our women. We don't take care of our seniors. So, you know, now having to go in, and even in all of our goodness and all of our glory and all of our beauty, a lot of these
Mhm.
things of what we are doing to make a positive impact are not valued. And so
Yeah.
when we ask the question about mental health, think about all of that. You could have gone to the best school, you have nice clothes, you are very well spoken, you give back in your community, but you're still not good enough because there are stereotypes about black men that only allow people to see you in a certain way. And so we have to be real about the impact that this has mentally on people when they're striving to be their best selves, but you have police forces that are still targeting them. You have, financial institutions that are still blocking them from being able to get the loans and the access they need to build businesses and build communities. So even when we do go down the right pathways, there's still barriers. And so I'm not saying that,
Yeah.
this is an excuse for black men. I want to paint a
No.
reality
Yeah.
that this has a huge impact on our mental health, even when we say that we're okay and we think that we have it together, because all black
Yeah.
men are being impacted by this in various ways.
That's good. When you were talking, I was really thinking, and I just watched a podcast. Um, I wanna say it was earlier this week, and Dr. Umar Johnson, I know people feel a lot of ways about him, but I really love his take on children, our kids in the educational system, and he mentioned that as far as how, Black and brown children are treated in the classroom and that stigma or label, and he was mentioning the importance of having Black men in the classroom and just showing how particularly with little boys, the changes in their performance when there's someone that looks like them and they're a man in the classroom. And he also mentioned, like you said, the labeling, the stigma, the discrimination that happens, and even the attention they get throughout the learning process. So I'm really glad you brought that up because as you were talking, I was really rolling that around in my mind, like, yeah, yeah, I've heard this before. So I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah, I think also too, we have to be intentional about the role that we want black men to play in families and communities. And
Mhm.
throughout this month we've been having some powerful conversations and call to actions around how we are engaging men. And as a teacher, as a mentor, as someone who's been in the community leading and serving, I always tell people that it starts at that initial conversation. Whether
Yeah.
you're dating, whether you um, whatever phase in life you may be in, I'll say that. Um, when you've been with someone and you get that phone call from a young lady or a woman, and they tell you, hey, um, we're expecting, or you're at dinner and they say, hey, we're expecting, or wherever that moment happens,
Mhm.
that is when the journey begins right then. It becomes a huge responsibility of what do we do to help ensure that this child has the best um, early development. And that early development starts at that moment. So a lot of times, society tells us that, oh, she's having a baby, so she's going to go through these 9 months of being pregnant. So you can chill, you can run around, you can do this, you can do that. And I'm like, no, that's when you should be hustling. That's when you should be making sure, okay, hey, I need to be making sure that we got enough money to get, you know, diapers. We got, even if we're not going to be together, and
Yeah.
that's gonna even complicate it more. I'm like, we know that these things are gonna happen. This isn't anything new, and so the community also, I feel, has a responsibility. Hey, young brother, I heard that you having a baby that's on the way. Where you working at? I'm not working. Okay, hey, I need you to come up to the shop. I need you to start doing this. You got to start saving because you need to have pampers. You need to be able to have food. When she called to say, listen, my mom is not able to do this, or my dad can't, my parents can't, my grandparents can't, I need your help. You need to be able to come with something to help with this
Yeah.
child. So we also play a role, and we can't expect the system to do it. Let's also be real
No,
about
it's
that.
a
The
definite
system is not
community.
going to, yeah, the system is
Yeah.
not going to come in and educate us, free us, teach us, feed the no. We got to make sure that we are doing it, and we definitely can.
That's good. Um, Going into that, and that requires maturation, right? Maturity.
Yes.
So as a man, because we hear all the time, particularly from the church background, you're walking away from this life and you're entering this life, you have to change your circles. But even as a man, you experience ebbs and flows in your growth in manhood, even in different phases of your life. So, Jason, can you kind of touch on the importance of shifting your circles during those growth spurts in manhood when you have circles of people around you that are holding you accountable, challenging you to be a better man, and really how important that really is?
Yeah, it is important, and I think that everybody needs someone that they have, that they go to, that they seek, wise counsel. And I want to be quite honest, a lot of times people are like, oh, you have to be this certain stature. I don't care if you are the gang banger, the drug dealer, because if you have kids and you are part of community, then those things are irrelevant. What matters is you have somebody that in the time of trouble you can go to, and get sound advice. Uh, and we should be able to value that. And so my question now is, who are these people? Who are the people
Mm,
in the community that young brothers can go to? Who are the schools calling when they need support with young men who they may not be able to reach? We also have to think too, if there are a lot of dads who are absent in the households, right? Now these children, whether they're girls or boys, are coming to schools. We know that black men are 2% of the 17% of black educators in the system. So now you got to think, there are a lot of women that are standing before these kids. If I am the person that they see at home or in a community, then maybe we got to figure out other ways to reach kids by engaging, you know, fathers and other leaders in the community to be engaged in our schools. But we know this. The bigger question is, why are we not doing this?
yeah, but even as a man, like within your man group, like beyond education, what are your thoughts on just, you see your boy messing up and it's like, hey man, what are you doing? Like, just holding each
Yeah,
other
I think
accountable in that
that
aspect.
accountability is key, and I think that we definitely can better check ourselves, just as men. I think that definitely is something that we all are striving to do more of. However, I also know that God has given all of us free will, and free will allows us to make the decision that even if I come from a two-parent household, multi, generational family, if I am coming from whatever, household, I still am making a conscious decision to show up in this way, or the way that I'm showing up. And so I also think that self accountability is key. Even if I don't have the best influences around me, what is my foundation? And I also think about how everybody has a different foundation. So how can people be something that we may expect or want them to be if they've never had that exposure or experience?
Yeah. I think that's a really good point. So, as we start to kind of circle this conversation around, and we're in a place and time of walking expectation, and in that space where you're looking for things, you're hoping for things, you have things on your prayer list, you have things on your goal list, you have things on your vision board.
Yeah.
I really want to have this segment of the conversation as far as the importance of protecting your ear gate, your eye gate, what's coming out of your mouth. And
Oh yeah.
in that process and transition, as we are in this journey or in this place of transition going into that expected place.
Yeah, no, that's really good. And just thinking about black men and the things that um, a lot of us do center. You know, when we look at data on social media, what are black men, um, watching? And there are a lot of variation of things that come up. The Breakfast Club. You mentioned uh, Dr. Umar. You think about a lot of the social media influencers that, unfortunately, World Star and like the other like media rooms that um, people are still connected to in various ways. In some of the um, places people are getting information, a lot of brothers are showing up in these spaces. And so if
Mhm.
they're showing up in these spaces and this is what's feeding them, a lot of them are not showing up in community meetings. A lot of them are not showing up in churches. A lot of them are not showing up in schools or in programs. So their only connection to community is what they're seeing on social media that may not be factual or it may not be realistic. But what you
Because
see
of the
and
payout,
what you
right?
listen,
It's all about
yeah,
followers.
yeah, it is. It's about followers. And so, um, spiritually, think about it. Like people are sacrificing themselves. Christ sacrificed himself, and he had followers that were supposed to take up his principles to do good, just like other people, other faiths have different things. People are worshiping social media. So they're sacrificing themselves for people to follow them. But where are we actually following people? Where are they actually going? And so a lot of
Yes,
these
yeah.
brothers are watching things that are on social media, and then we are wondering why we keep seeing more video clips of young girls being jumped by boys. But then a lot of these podcasts and a lot of these, reality shows and a lot of these social media influencers are, you know, reiterating negative stereotypes, right? They're reiterating, stories that, oh yeah, she's good as long as she's doing this, but then she just gonna be your baby mama and you need to slap her around because isn't that what the music says? Isn't that what we just saw happen with rappers and one rapper shot a female rapper and we saw how people came to the defense of the man and he was on video. This is what gets me. You said it out your mouth. I would go with what I think that's what jurors and that's what the
Where is
court
this
system would
coming
say.
from though? Like the hate of women, like, and the thing is you wouldn't be here if it wasn't for us. You literally came through us, and just the level of not
But I'm
all,
asking,
but
I'm asking brothers,
yeah.
what is because my thing is in the work that I do, I, not respecting like the the I didn't play that as a teacher. I didn't have discipline issues, and people disrespected people because they were. Cause see, I was that kid that had been teased, but also had teased people. So I was like, I don't play that in my classroom in the environment. I don't
Yeah,
allow that because I know that. Well, I think it was funny because I'm teasing somebody because of maybe the awkwardness of their nose or their body shape or whatever. How is that mentally impacting them, right? So I'm not a
yeah,
kid anymore. So I look at it
yeah,
differently. So I make sure that kids have safe spaces. But, again, I made a comment earlier about how black women are the most, unprotected. I got to challenge black men to say, hey, but how are we stepping up to really ensure that people don't feel like they could? So my thing is, if black women are the most unprotected, that says something about them, yes, but it says a lot about us because why are we as black men and we as a black community not protecting a part of our community? So we
Yeah.
also have to swallow that hard pill of, again, yes, racism exists, right? These different systems of oppression exist, but how am I showing up? These systems exist, but does it mean that I'm going to allow this system to have me disrespect black women or curse them out
Yeah.
or treat them, less than, or physically, verbally, mentally abuse them or cheat on them, or all of these things? I'm like, yeah, the system is going to do what the system does, but it's the system making you choose to do these things. And so we all, again, our free will, we all play a role in how we want to show up in these spaces.
I like that. Just, as you were talking, I don't know who said it, Jason, but there was a quote, and someone made this quote, and they said, "If you wanna test or gauge the health of a culture or community, look to how the men treat their women."
Yeah, I mean, I think it is valuable. I think about how, again, everybody has different, experiences. People would say that black men are nurturing. I was like, well, all black men aren't nurturing. You know, all black men are different. So there are some black men who are nerds. There are some black men who like to read. There are some black men who like to design things. There are black men who like to cook. There are black men who are good fathers. Black men are nurturers. Black men can be a lot of things, but I think that in taking a step back, we also have the stigmas and stereotypes. My very first book, Suit, Swag, and Success, is talking about how to change the narratives around stereotypes and stigmas that have for too long dictated how black men can exist and show up in different spaces. And so for us to be different, we have to know that we have the power to change um, the environment and atmospheres that we show up in. And so how are we actually showing up? And
Yeah,
I
and then
think
those
that's
that
big.
try to, they get called a simp. Like, "Oh, you're a
Yeah.
simp, you're simping, or you're pandering to women," and I'm just like, there are groups of men out here that are showing up every day, trying to do the right thing, be the father. You even look at what Russell Wilson goes through constantly. Like, you have another group calling him a simp for being a father, husband, and a dad, and I'm like,
Yeah.
well,
No,
for a
that's a good.
husband and
I'm
a
glad you
father,
brought
like,
that
that's
up,
wild.
because black men, heterosexual black men, I'm also going to go there and be very honest. Heterosexual black men can also be the oppressors of our community. And that can be by nature, because what were men taught to be? We have to think in the sense of the patriarchy showed us that, oh, okay, this is how we treat women. That white women are supposed to be in the home, and they're supposed to be quote unquote trophy wives, and we protect them, and nobody is supposed to whistle at them or want them or desire them because they are for us. But we also can have any other woman. So when we think about the behaviors that black men have taken on over time, it has been things that they have not only seen, but also ways that these things are carried out throughout our culture. And so there's a natural essence of teaching men that they are supposed to be head of household, which I'm not saying that's not a right or wrong thing, but they are
Mhm.
head of household. And then you look at black divorce rates, and it's because black men can take the fact that their black wife has made more money than them. And so now I have to either try to mentally, emotionally, or spiritually break her down and control her. And now I have lost my family because I can't get past the notion of I'm supposed to be head of household, because this is what we have taught people. You are not a man unless you are head of household. Now, when I also look at other cultures, yeah, I'm still head of household, but baby, if you make a better coin and we're able to send these kids to college and we're able to sustain ourselves and be happy, then I think that maybe, I don't want to say common sense, but I would say maybe a different mindset will come in and say, hey, we got to do best for what's good for our household. But I also think that people don't have the autonomy to do that because there's so many notions of control uh, that don't really allow people to have the mindset to think differently. So you even connect this back to mental health. That's a lot to carry. Like, am I pleasing my wife? Am I doing the right thing? Am I upstanding, black man? Am I doing it in the right way of this? Or am I doing it in this way? Or are people gonna like me if I do it this way? I don't want to be a simp like Russell Wilson because I'm like taking care of kids and being upstanding, reading before the kids, go to bed at night, making sure there's food in the refrigerator. Like, that's a lot of pressure. So going back to
Yeah, I
mental
think
health and how to
yeah.
carry all of that, it's a lot. But it's also willingly what do we want to carry and what do we make important?
And I'm going to play devil's advocate. Not that I actually agree with this line of thought. I'm just playing devil's advocate just because I want to hear your take on it. Do you think, we hear terms like, oh, he's a simp or that's lame, and it's emotionally triggering to certain groups of men. Do you really think it's because deep down they really want that or really wish they had that or could be that? And so the thing they really admire is also a pain point for them as the little boy inside of them, and so they throw shade,
I think it could
like
be a
project.
variation of things. I think that everybody doesn't want the same thing. I think that
Right.
we are made to believe that people are good or bad or people indifferent. I think that people are people. I think by human
That
nature
too. I
we
was
know.
wondering, like, just devil's advocate. I'm just wondering, like, where could that really be coming from?
Yeah,
Because
I think that it could be jealousy from some people. I think that it could be trauma from others. I think that it's also we know that more people are followers than leaders. So even though I know that this brother is doing the right thing and it's really good to do that, and we should be praising that, I don't really have. It's not even a lack of character, but I may not have the strength, or I may not
the
have,
discipline.
the discipline to say, "Hey, we need to lay off of him because that is something phenomenal." We all should be. Everybody isn't going to be that either. More people are going to follow than lead. So if it's cooler and more acceptable to tease someone because they're doing the right thing and they're smart, a lot of black kids are killing themselves because they're bullied because they're smart. And I was like, that's
Mm,
crazy to me that people are being bullied literally to their death because they are smart, but we don't want black kids to be smart. We don't want them to be happy. We don't want black boys to smile. Like it's kind of weird, but that it's more followers than leaders, and so that's where those pressures, come in. So we can equate everything back again to how this mentally impacts us, and even where men are supposed to be quote unquote, um, you know, a lot of people want to say that men are stronger than women physically or whatever that means, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, like being able to handle the pressures of um, what society wants you to be, what type of man society thinks you are. It's easier for men to walk away from their families than to stay and make sure that their kids are getting what they need because society pushes you to not be a good dad, not to be a good father. And sadly, that is the reality. But we have to still make conscious choices of who we want to be and how we want to show up.
that's good. I really like that, and I love your school of thought as far as challenging the brothers in our community to show up and stand up. I think the work that you do in the world of education is phenomenal. So just thank you just for showing up every day. We need more Jason Allens out here.
Man, I appreciate that. I also dropped this in the atmosphere. We all learn differently. I'm a special education teacher by trade, so I'll say, everybody ain't showing up to the board meeting. That's why we got to make
Mm,
sure that we at the community centers and that we're on the water boys are out there selling waters. Why don't somebody pull up out there with them and say, hey, they selling water. We're gonna pass out information about what's really going on with gang violence or what's really going
true.
on with gun violence. Like, you know, everybody a part of the community, so we all should be on that corner. They selling water, I'm out here selling popcorn. Get you a popcorn, water, um, you know, fish sandwich special. I don't know, but I'm just saying, like, we got to beat people
Yeah.
where they are. There are a lot of people who are still on MARTA. So who's taking that time to be out at the MARTA stations and reaching people, and who's going out to the, cheerleader competitions, and who's going out to the football games and meeting people where
Yeah.
they are. We saying families don't have health care, and brothers don't know where their paternal rights are, then maybe put that stuff up in, a sandwich and some chips, and be like, hey, like, even if they throw it on the ground, at least they have it, or somebody gonna be like, hey, they were talking about paternal rights, I might need to slide this up in my pocket for later, and
Yes.
not let
Yes.
anybody see me, but at least you know
That's good.
it was provided. So I just also want to put that out there. Like, everybody may not come to the schoolhouse, but how are we intentionally engaging people where they are? And that goes into partnerships. So we have a partnership with Fathers Inc. They know where dads are. They're helping dads connect to their rights and being engaged and child support and understanding that. We're not telling people to go out and do that. We're saying, hey, here's how you can get the information and find people who are actually passionate about it, trained in, and are willing to do this work. And you may be the connector. You may be the person that's picking people up and dropping them off. You may be the person that's like, let me send my 10% over to make sure I'm helping get the resources that are needed. So I think it goes
Mhm.
back again to willingness, how people want to connect, how they want to engage, what they want to see different.
Yeah, that too, and then when you have the events, don't complain about not having the resources created and then don't show up. Because 'cause I've seen it even through my organization, my
Yeah,
sorority, like, we've done things, and sometimes it turn out it's iffy, and it's like, "You wanted this, we created it, and we do the event, which takes money, and then people don't show up." Like, we had a
yeah,
whole health fair all day talking about the disparities of Black women and delivery, and had doulas there and mental health people there, like, all aspects of the mental health, and turnout, as far as different organizations with the community, but were there, but as far as just everyday Black people, very few came, and I'm like, "But these are
yeah.
the very things
And
that you need, the information that you need."
it's tricky with community organizing. One of the things I would say, especially with MPU, like, joining us is free. We help people with organizing in ways that people can, come together and, utilize strategies that really increase impact. So definitely connect with us. That's a lot of the work that I do as an organizing, member in the department as a national organizer. And so there's strategies and keys to really doing this work effectively, especially for nonprofits that are smaller and don't have the $100,000, $1 million, etc., so forth budgets. There are ways to do this, and there are also ways. Again, there's so many ways to connect with people. There's so many options now. Everybody is not going to um, get to it in different ways. But I just, going back to thinking about Christ and the different disciples, every disciple
Mhm.
was different. Every disciple had a gift. Every disciple met people and reached people in different ways. And so we've
Yeah,
got to reach brothers. We've got to reach Black men. We've got to reach Black fathers. We have to reach Black boys in different ways. Some people may come through the mosque. Some people may come through the church. Some people may come through after school programs. Some people may come through the skating club. Some people may come through esports or gaming. But whichever
yeah.
pathway, we have to make sure that people are connected to community so that they can be their best selves and thrive um, collectively together as community.
I love that, Jason. Thank you. As we begin to wrap up, do you have any final thoughts, nuggets, or takeaways that you would like to leave with the listeners and the followers, and then also where people can leave you on social media? Just because there are so many layers to this conversation, and you are such a wealth of information, and I really enjoyed talking to you because you are so passionate about what you do, and I love that. So, do you have any nuggets that you would like to leave with the listeners or viewers? Viewers.
Yeah, definitely. Takeaways. If you are really serious about connecting people in your community, the National Parents Union, join us. It's free. It takes about 2 to 3 minutes. We get your information. You will get some, information from me on our partnership profile, our coalitions, our campaigns. We're doing a lot of work around housing justice, environmental justice, some really
Mm,
cool things to connect families for better outcomes for our kids in and out of school. Education is the passport to freedom, but if we are not doing this collectively as a community, then we all ain't gonna be free. So, in order for us to
yeah,
remain free and continue to um, gain different levels of freedom, we have to do this collectively. So
yeah.
definitely one, join the National Parents Union. Is phenomenal work. We need people to really be centered and connected. I also would say this, you know, every day that we have breath, that we show up, in this form of life, we should always try to do um, something greater in that moment. And so give people grace, give yourself grace. Understand that we are human, we are imperfect. We don't do everything perfect or anything perfect, rather, at um, any given time. We could fail at any moment. Failure is also not the end, but it's a way for us to acknowledge that, we can be better and we all can be better. So give yourself grace. That's a big part of self care and taking care of you. And I'm looking forward to connecting to people who hear this podcast. We have some amazing things coming up, how we're organizing across the state and really just across the nation. So, again, connect with National Parents Union and show yourself some grace. My takeaways, my last
I
final
love it.
words.
And be sure, when I post this, please drop the link in the comments below. That way others, that wanna reach you or try to reach you, they can get in touch with you and also, for the NPU. And also, where can people reach you on social media?
Yeah, Professor JBA on any platform. You can also reach me on my personal website. It's educationalentities.com. I'm going to break that down again. Educational Entities, Entities, .com. You can connect to all of my podcasts, the I Win Morning Show. The students have a podcast, the No Cap Zone. Of course, Speak Black Man podcast and what I have going on this season. Educationalentities.com. That's the best way to connect with me.
And one more thing, I don't know if you heard, it's on the ballot right now. The state of Mississippi, they are in the process of creating a bill to shut down the HBCUs in the state of Mississippi. I don't know if you heard that.
Yes, I was
They
reading
came
up
out.
on that this week,
Yeah,
and very
yeah.
interesting that um, would be taking place. And I'm challenging Republicans because a lot of Black Republicans who voted for Trump were like, "Oh, he did so much for the HBCUs," and so I'm curious to see how Black Republicans are going to actually speak up against this, since this was something that Trump passed and put in place for HBCUs to be getting more money,
That was a
apparently over
campaign
the
point for
next.
him.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
if it was a campaign point for him, why are they not saying, oh no, why are you all not advocating and standing up for these schools not
yeah.
to be closed? If this was a campaign point and you are saying that you value the Black Republicans who are a part of the base. I do find that I'm very curious about, I see Black Democrats, I see, the Black community, I see HBCU alumni and students who are standing up and joining the cause to advocate for these schools, but I don't see a lot of Black Republicans who I follow and just nationally speaking out and using their platforms to say, hey, we should not be pushing this forward, especially since it was such a major,
But the
you
thing is
know,
that money is allocated every year throughout
yeah,
every administration, but it wasn't like a special thing that he did. That's something that's throughout the federal budget. That's money that's allocated every year. So I don't know why they made it seem like this is a new thing that he introduced and has done. Like,
right.
this is done.
No, you were
It's part of
absolutely
the
right.
budget.
You were absolutely right. And to that point, since Black Republicans and the Republican base allowed him to campaign off of this notion that he created this, I'm using that as a way to hold them accountable to say that,
Yeah,
hey,
because I'm like, if you know
since you
anything
guys are
and you
talking
read,
about
you know that's not
facts,
true.
yeah, since you guys are talking about facts, factually,
Yeah.
he campaigned that he acted like he created this, even though, to your point, we know that that's not the case. So it's interesting, just again, the lack of value around our educational and economic advancement. And so I'm hoping that they are able to rally behind those schools. I'm also looking at, if these are public education institutions and they close them down, well, what's going to happen to that land? Is it going to be public
Mm.
housing, or we going to be using this for workforce development? Like, what is the thought behind, um, you know, closing those schools, which we already know. Um, but yes, that's my 2 cents and my soapbox on that.
Yeah, I do know the case in DC at Howard is still pending with the white law student that is suing Howard University for $2 million, which is a low amount. And just as we start to wrap up, and I made the point to the individual I was speaking with, I was like, it's not about the money, it's to set legal precedents. And the
Yeah.
thing is, he's suing for racial discrimination. However, he is the perpetrator of the discrimination because students kept telling administrators, "Hey, this individual is racially antagonizing his classmates. He's posting racial things online." Um, and at some point, Howard University did expel him from school, Jason. And so now he's like, "Oh, I'm being discriminated against," and he's suing Howard, but they expelled him from school for violating the code of conduct for being racist towards his classmates. And so we see this whitewashing of HBCUs, and I called it years ago. I was like, at some point, somebody's going to sue, and it's like you allow this person to come in. And what's so wild, I know somebody that was in class with the person because they had a town hall meeting, and the one that's suing this school brought an undercover Fox News reporter to the town hall meeting. And so now they're in the process of trying to litigate this case or at least mediate it. But I'm like, even if at some point they're gonna have to pay him, and it's gonna set precedents. And I really think it's the beginning of them attempting to shut down HBCUs because of what we're seeing with DEI and diversity and states like Texas and
Yes,
Florida and this. And I'm like, this is very dangerous.
it is. But then we also have to think that this started because of book bans and how we were banning books. And I mean,
It
it's so
started before book
easily,
banning though, like, when you start to see whitewashing of D9 fraternities and sororities and all these cookout cards flying out all over the place, you are invited to the cookout and you're invited to the cookout, and it's like, um, do you not see the bigger issue and the bigger problem with this? Or
yeah.
even do you understand why we have these organizations or why we have D9 fraternities, sororities here or the HBCUs, what I meant to say. And so now I watched documentaries and listen to news reports, and now this person is suing Howard because he came in, and the individual that was in class with him was saying he wasn't coming to class, he was barely turning his assignments, he was antagonizing students and doing this allegedly, let's use that word, but it's just like you came in with the intention that I'm gonna instigate, perpetrate, do enough to get kicked out, and then sue them for discrimination. So it's like we have to look at the big picture of that and what tone that sets for other HBCUs in the future that are in the process of bleaching their campuses for money.
Yeah, I mean, again, this isn't anything new, and these attacks should have been, um, you know, they should have been better countered. I'm just being honest. Now, we see what's happening, but again, I challenge us to say that with all the institutional knowledge that we have, what do Black people in America really want? I think that, you know, taking the high road, I think that's phenomenal. I think we've taken the high road, but we also see that our um, institutions, our churches, our communities are still under attack. And so, what do we really do to say, hey, this is unacceptable? We're not going to allow this. We aren't going to have this. So it's interesting to see, but I mean, it can be changed. Or are we
Well,
willing to
it
do
is
it?
very yeah, it is very interesting. But just as I said before, thank you for again for coming by. I look forward to bringing you back as we continue this conversation with you throughout 2024, Lord willing. And
Yes.
again, thank you for your time, and thank you to everyone that tuned in and joined us here. Be sure to catch the replay available on our YouTube channel. Be sure to hit that notification bell and subscribe. We are on Facebook and YouTube. You can also follow me on Instagram at Camille.Essick. And you can also send me an email at speakerpodcast@gmail.com. We are kicking off the month of March with a phenomenal lineup. I'm pretty sure you're gonna really be very excited about what is to come. So I look forward to seeing you all there. Just as a reminder, if you did not see the post, beginning next month, our live episodes will be featured exclusively on our Facebook Speaker Podcast page and YouTube, only because we are working to maximize more our content in our space, and because we really want to make sure that you're in the loop and what's going on with the show in our community. And be sure to follow us and download us across various platforms. We're about 1,000 downloads away from hitting our first big major milestone of 10,000 downloads. If you have not done so, please go right now and subscribe and download that so we can hit this goal, because I really would like to celebrate that with you all as well. And thank you again, Jason. You all be blessed, and I'll see you next Thursday with our guest Seals the Man at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Have a safe weekend. Be blessed. Good night.